Ah, curse me kilts. Here we go again. Welcome back to Grand Theft Audio Brackets, my show where I ordinarily take every single radio station from across the Grand Theft Audio series, take every single song from those stations, pit them against each other in a March Madness style bracket, and have you, the viewing public, decide which one is the winner. Currently, I'm doing business as Disney song brackets for this season. My popular request, I have split up roughly 100 years of Disney animated content, or I should say feature films, into about 64 or so eligible songs from those feature films, not counting live action or Pixar films. And I've been going through them one region at a time, relatively split up into rough chronological order. If you're just now joining us, we are in our final round for our bracket, which I've called the Modern Bracket, which ranges roughly from Lion King until about Encanto or so. When we last left off, we were looking at I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan versus Into the Unknown from Frozen 2. Of the 16 songs in that bracket, those were the ones who made it to the finals. It actually didn't end up being close at all. Turns out millennial nostalgia is a hell of a drug. Mulan handily beats Frozen 2, 13-8. I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan has been determined the winner of this particular region, the modern region of songs. And they will go on to the final four once I get through the other three regions. Now, I asked in previous videos which one you wanted to see next between what I termed the classics, in quotes, the Dark Age through Renaissance, which is roughly Jungle Book until about half of Lion King, and then the last one, which I've called Pop, which has just been everything in the last 30 or 40 years or so, either done by a pop musician, that had a version of it recorded by a pop musician, or which generally sort of fits the theme. And the overwhelming consensus of the one person who responded said pop, so we're going to be doing pop. I'm going to read out in general seeding order the songs in this bracket. Now, I know there's probably going to be some contention over why some songs are not seeded higher. In general, what I do in my normal GTA brackets is I try to go based on some combination of recognizability, how prolific the artist is, and at the end of the day, chart performance. Now, given the fact that a vast majority of these are pretty prolific in their own right, I went simply with chart performance this time, which is a bit controversial, I think, but because these are all, pop songs for the most part, I thought that this was the best way to approach it. That means that there's going to be some kind of unusual things seated at the top, but I don't make the rules. Well, I do make the rules. What I don't determine is what was popular on Billboard 100 back in 1991. So, with that being said, here we go. Seed number 1 was A Whole New World by Peabo Bryson and Regina Belle. That version, that's the pop version as opposed to the Lea Salonga version from the movie, actually peaked at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 that year, and would be the last Disney song to do so until We Don't Talk About Bruno, as it turns out. That's seeded number 1. Number 2 seed is Can You Feel the Love Tonight, the Elton John version. I've seeded that one so high because not only did that make it to number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100, it actually also won the Oscar for Best Song that year. Moving on to number 3, we have Go the Distance by Michael Bolton from the Hercules soundtrack. Now, I don't really care for this song. You might be wondering, why'd you seed it so high then, Drew? Well, because, again, that was the way that the charts shook out. This one actually charted pretty high. Most of these did not really chart in the Billboard, but rather the adult contemporary. However, for Michael Bolton, this one I think was his 9th song overall to get right in there, right in the top of the chart. In fact, this one was also nominated for Best Original Song, but lost to My Heart Will Go On, as well as peaking at 24 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the adult Hot Contemporary charts. Moving right along, we have Strangers Like Me from Phil Collins off the Tarzan soundtrack. That one also charted very high, again, on the Hot Adult Contemporary tracks at number 10. Then moving on, we had Reflection by Christina Aguilera. Now, again, that did chart in the Adult Contemporary at 19. Not my favorite song from the movie, but considering the chart performance of the other songs from that movie, which is to say lower or non-existent, my hands are sort of tied here. Number 6, You'll Be in My Heart by Phil Collins from the Tarzan soundtrack. And let me just warn you straight away, this is lousy with Phil Collins' particular bracket. I don't think I've ever had a bracket that I've done before that's been so just absolutely inundated with a single artist doing all these songs. So All you Collins heads out there, I guess you're welcome. That one, I think, was also either charted on the Adult Contemporary or it charted overseas. I think Really Only Strangers Like Me was one that actually charted in the States. So as a result of that, the rest of his contributions to the soundtrack are kind of sprinkled throughout this list. What did chart, however, is seed number 7, Dos Oruguitas, by Sebastian Yatra, which, as it turns out, was his first break into the Billboard Top 40, actually. From this point onward, the chart performance gets a little bit fuzzy. Usually they either chart in other countries, if at all, so I just said, to hell with it. To heck with it, for any of you kids watching out there. And I put seed number 8 as Eye to Eye by Tevin Campbell from A Goofy Movie, which, by the way, if you haven't seen the Goofy Movie episode of Atlanta, do it. Stop what you're doing right now. Stop watching me. Go watch that, because there's a very effective use of that song in that episode. It's just a great episode of television. Number 9, True to Your Heart by 98 Degrees and Stevie Wonder, which I totally forgot Stevie Wonder was actually on that song. Again, from the Mulan soundtrack, which I find it hilarious that even back in 1998, apparently critics were like, this song does not fit this movie. This is very jarring to hear this. And while I agree, it's a great upbeat song, it's just, it didn't chart very well. So here we are. What did chart, however, number 10, Try Everything by Shakira. That made it into the top 100 at least. That is from the Zootopia soundtrack. At number 11 and number 12, we have 2 more Phil Collins Tarzan songs. We have Son of Man and Two Worlds, both of which charted overseas but not in the States. Number 13, Stand Out by Tevin Campbell from Goofy Movie, which I think is probably the lesser of the 2 songs in my opinion, but you might prove me wrong in this. Number 14, When Will My Life Begin by Mandy Moore and Tangled, which I feel is maybe a little controversial for me to put here instead of in the modern bracket, but it was kind of hard enough to get 64 songs that I could easily break up into 4 regions just to make this whole thing work. So I think maybe you can cut me some slack here. Mandy Moore has been a pop artist in the past, after all. That one did not chart, so it's all the way down here, along with, arguably this might be one of the most pop songs on here, but it simply did not chart. I don't believe it was ever released as a single, so that's why it's all the way down here. Number 15, Why Should I Worry by Billy Joel from Oliver and Company. I was completely unaware of who Billy Joel was when I was a child. My first introduction was, and I forgot that this was a thing that used to happen, but Oliver and Company was re-released to theaters in 1996, so much to the point where they even had Burger King toys based on it. Like, that's just not something you would see today. Like, they're not going to re-release Wreck-It Ralph and, like, have a whole ad campaign around it. They just, it's not a thing that's done, but it was a different time. And then finally, number 16, just when you thought that you were safe from Phil Collins, ho-ho, you're wrong. There's one last Phil Collins song here. This one is No Way Out from the Brother Bear soundtrack. They got him to do a couple of songs for that. Apparently his other one actually did chart on the adult contemporary charts, something called Look Through My Eyes. But honestly, since this one is billed as the theme from Brother Bear, I saw fit to include it here. And honestly, having listened to both of them, they both sound kind of the same, and they're both kind of terrible. Don't take my advice for it. I've been proven wrong many a time before on this, but I am going to place the ballot below. We're going to be in for a snowstorm this coming week, so maybe that'll give you some time to look over this, listen to this. I don't know. I'm going to give you probably about a week and a half to put all this in, so I'll say probably until maybe weekend after next. Will be when I'll finally close this. But anyway, hope you're all enjoying this. Feel free to comment below with your arguments as to why I completely messed up the seeding of all of this. I welcome all criticism. I welcome comments, because I've just kind of been going off the dome with all this, and maybe there's a better way I could be doing all this. I don't know. Anyway, from me, from Skeletor, from Man-at-Arms over there, and from my dog who's been making noise throughout all of this, thank you very much, and everybody be safe out there for those of you in areas affected by the weather here. And have a good one.